Welcome to Better Everyday with Charoh Ortiz. I'm Charoh Ortiz. Today, I want to introduce you to Patricia Alvarado. Based in Los Angeles, Patricia is a certified EMDR therapist, EMDRIA approved consultant, speaker, author, professor, and the founder of Alvarado Therapy, a group therapy practice. Patricia is a first generation Spanish speaking Latina and mental health expert specializing in trauma and trauma healing, specifically focusing on how trauma impacts various aspects of our lives. She creates and leads culturally relevant mental wellness programs tailored for companies aiming to enhance the well being of their diverse workforce. Patricia is passionate about breaking the stigma surrounding mental health and empowering professionals to live fulfilling and deserving lives. Her vision is to make mental health a fundamental part of life for every working professional, offering unique resources that promote healthier and more productive living. Welcome, Patricia.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me. Hola, hola.
Muchas gracias. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule to join me this today and share a little bit of your expertise on mental health. So, just to give everyone a little bit of a background, I had the opportunity to briefly meet Patricia at a national event where she was one of the keynote speakers and also a guest to do a workshop. And that's really what I attended, one of her workshops. I was fascinated. I've always been fascinated, I should say, um, with everything around mental health and anything that makes us feel better every day, as you can tell.
Mhm.
Patricia shares a very interesting concept, which is definitely not new, but it's a focus that I think is super important and relevant even in today's age and day and age. And this is the topic of choice. Choice is such a simple word and yet powerful aspect of lives, which you would think that is something that we all do all the time, which we do. Consciously and unconsciously, we do make choices every day. But thinking in the context of the Latino world, especially being a Latina, choice
Mhm.
seems to take a whole different dimension. And that's why I brought Patricia to talk a little more about what choice means for us Latina women within a cultural context. What are the stigmas and how much more work do we need to do to really become empowered and make important choices in our lives?
Mhm.
So, help us understand, what is really the power of choice and how is this topic across this Latino spectrum?
Yeah, yeah. You know, I think that choice has been something that I think I haven't had for many years of my life, to be honest. Especially in early upbringing, coming from these spaces, having a Latina mother, an immigrant mother, that the narrative was very much about you do not speak, you just listen. Or oftentimes I had to guess her mannerisms and hope that I was making the right decision based on her facial expressions or mannerisms. And so I kind of grew up in these environments where I felt like I didn't have a say in a lot of things, and therefore often felt very powerless or helpless or even hopeless. And that kind of carried on throughout high school, college, even after graduation, going into my master's program. And it's really something that I've embraced more throughout the years. So I remember that time and time again. I'm from the Facebook age. I know some people are like, oh, Facebook is old or whatever.
Hey, we're not old.
But like I remember being on Facebook when it was only for college students. So this is, gonna age me a little on when I joined Facebook. Um but like you could put like your status updates, or like you
Mhm.
can like say what you were thinking. And
True.
each time that I would write something there, it would always be something about like something needs to change. I'm tired of this routine. I'm so over it. And then I'd get those reminders, like you get like memories a year later, and I'm just like, man, why am I still in the same spot? And it was mostly like in work environments,
Mm.
but of course it was translating also to interpersonal relationships where I was just going with the flow or not allowing myself to make decisions or being assertive. And in I was living in New York City, and I was working for this big company, a big insurance company. And I just felt so tired of the day-to-day routine, the day-to-day commute, constantly getting those Facebook reminders of 5 years ago today, you said you wanted change, and that still wasn't happening.
Hmm.
And so when I moved from New York City back to LA, back home, I said, I'm just going to work for myself and I'm going to make that conscious decision. And whatever happens, happens. And that's when I really started leaning into choice and how, like, I'm deciding to make this decision for myself. It makes sense for me. It feels right in the moment. And if it doesn't work out, then I'm going to figure it out.
That
And
is
that's kind of how
wonderful.
like that concept really started evolving for me, which then translated to my interpersonal relationships and of course also the work that I do with my clients, which
Hmm.
has been so powerful for them. Now we talk about it like, well, that's a choice. This is information and what are we going to do with it? So that's
Yes.
kind of like the background of where this even came about and why this has been such an important part of the way that I do my work and also the way that I carry myself in the world.
I love that. You gave such a great example of how, as Latinas, growing up in some of us very traditional environments, others maybe not as conservative, but still, it seems to be across the cultures within the Latino communities where we grow up. Thinking that we need to follow certain patterns. And this
For
is
sure.
probably, I'm sure, not unique to the Latino culture, but we do experience it growing up, especially as women when
Mm,
we were told what was right, what was wrong, and even more so when it came to relationships or even work or the things you need to do in order to succeed. Because
mm,
success was based on what our parents wanted for us and what they expected us to do because whatever we did was supposed to be better than what they did according to their own mirror, of course, according to their
right,
own perspective. So
right.
what are some of those patterns that you still see in your clients when you're dealing with Latinas? What still lingers across the ages? Because it seems to me that we're still kind of struggling to make choices. I am a first. Actually, I'm not even a first generation. I'm an immigrant. So
Mhm,
my daughter is the first generation, and I'm
mhm,
trying to break the pattern, but I totally remember not not feeling powerful to make choices,
right,
even
right.
when people and even my parents were not very vocal and saying, don't do that, you know,
Mhm,
but there
mhm.
was some sort of implication, something implied that told me, don't choose that way.
Yes. I think right now a lot of people and like I'm human, like I don't always have everything down. So there's even like little things that linger for me as well. But a lot of it is these these messages that are passed down generation after generation that kind of create that generational trauma that is talked about, from time to time. That the messages that were given to our grandparents are then given to our parents and then given to us. And these messages change through the generations. Maybe our grandparents really struggled with financially and medically, and maybe they struggled a lot with like the gender roles. So then our parents struggled with all those things, plus also maybe acculturation, like being in a new country or deciding if they want to come to a new country based on depending on what their situation is, plus financial, plus education, plus trying to do something different, breaking cycles, trying to see if that's something that's even an option for them. So then, us, all of those things, plus now being first gen and racism and white supremacy, the patriarchy, like all of these different things that like each generation deals with. And those messages are something that we are constantly exploring in therapy, specifically
Mm.
using EMDR. That is a specialty that I practice. But even just in traditional talk therapy, like talking, like sharing stories, clients sharing about their experiences, because oftentimes all of that is paired with trauma. All of those messages is paired with trauma, physical trauma, emotional trauma, just to name a few. They're all they all go back to these traumatic experiences that really create an impact in the way that we feel about ourselves. And so then now we start questioning our value system, our morals, the way that we look, the way that we act around family, feeling responsible for our parents or our siblings, maybe being what we call parentified. Uh, this word that like for me, I'm like, that's a word
Is that
because
a word?
yeah, I'm like, that's normal in my world. But it was really that, like, as a young
Mm.
child or a teenager, you were doing all the things that your parents should have done:
Mm.
the cooking, the cleaning, taking care of your siblings. I remember getting home, you know, I guess one thing that made me like lucky, I guess, is that I would get home and the food was already made. But like, so my mom would leave us the food on the stove, would leave me the food on the stove. I would get home, open the door. I was maybe 13, empty house or apartment, walk in, and by this time I had already had picked up my siblings. We all walked home, serve them food, make sure they ate, make sure they did their homework, make sure they showered, make sure
Right.
they get to bed. All of these things that I was responsible for as a 13-year-old. It's like I had
True.
two kids. I have two younger
Oh,
siblings. It's like I had two
ma-
kids.
I'm sure that many of us grew up being perfect babysitters at the age of 10. I
Yeah.
remember taking care of actually my nephews and some nieces at the
Mhm.
age of 8, 10, or 11.
Yep.
And we were experts at playing home, really,
Yep.
being, jugar a la casita. We did
Exactly.
because we had to take care of all those things. So it one thing is it's being a woman in the world. Another thing is being a Latina woman living in this,
There's so many
because it's a
complications.
whole different thing. We
Mhm.
we obviously tend to be more mature because of all the things we need to do way before our age. Uh,
Right.
Different generations, I'm a Gen Z, of course, things change over the decades, but still we carry on so much of those ideas and ideals that follow us, kind of hunt us down the road. And that's
Right.
how we make a lot of choices. And I want to
Right.
take a pause before we move on to talking more about choice. For those of us that don't know, can you explain a little more about EMDR and what it is?
Yeah. Oh, my favorite subject.
I knew it.
EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Big word, big word for, the short EMDR. But what it does is that it uses rapid eye movement or any type of bilateral stimulation. So if we're talking about rapid eye movement, literally your eyes moving back and forth, left to right, to help you reprocess trauma.
Hmm.
And so what happens is that the right side of your brain is more the emotional side. This is when we cry, we yell, we're happy, we're laughing. This is all the emotional side. This is a side like even in the womb when we are in our mother's belly. That's the first side of our brain that is online
Hmm.
because that's where our mother is speaking to us, other family members, other loved ones are speaking to us, and we already start getting those emotional pieces when we are still in vitro.
Hmm.
And then it is the left side of our brain. That's the logical side. That's where we say, you shouldn't have done that, or that was a really good decision. And that side of the brain actually doesn't really come online until you're probably like 3 years old,
Hmm.
when you can like know right from wrong. And
Hmm.
so in EMDR, what we do is that through bilateral stimulation or rapid eye movement, we're able to say, yes, I'm upset. Yes, I'm sad. And I can also be okay.
Hmm.
I can get through it. And when we are tackling and challenging our thought system through literal brain therapy, you're able to notice, like, yeah, I've been through these things. I can't change the past. I can't change these things that have happened to me. I can't change the things I've lived through, but that doesn't mean that I have to be stuck. It means that I can repair, I can heal, and I can feel better. And so it's a really cool form of therapy because it's less talking and it's literally brain therapy.
Mm.
Even sometimes people often will tell me, I don't remember. I don't remember from ages 7 to 10. Don't
Mm.
worry, EMDR's got you. Because if
Mm.
you have a feeling that something happened, there's a good chance that EMDR will help you remember or help you get some clarity.
Mm.
Because our body keeps the score. There's a book actually that's called The Body Keeps the Score. He remembers. Just like if you are, let's just say that let's just say you went because Halloween just passed. So let's just say that you were like at a haunted house, last year. And so you were frightened. And so this year that you're going to a haunted house, you're going to be apprehensive because you
Mm.
already know like something's going to happen. Like your body remembers.
That's so interesting because it can help you remember why you continue to make the same choice that you know that in your heart and your mind is not the best option
Yes,
for you, but you continue
exactly.
to repeat the same patterns. I think it's great for discovering patterns. That's awesome. Now I'm more intrigued. I'm going to have to go to EMDR therapy.
Seriously, to try it because you're going to learn so many things about yourself that you never knew were there, or
Yes.
just more clarity and understanding, maybe more compassion for yourself because now you can say, man, I've lived a crazy life, but also it doesn't mean that I have to stay stuck in it.
Right. Or
And that's
even,
where,
as I mentioned, continue to repeat the same patterns, therefore, kind of
hmm
unable to really make the choice that you know in your heart you want to make, but are
hmm
not eager, don't have the courage, don't even feel like you deserve it many times. Let's talk
hmm
about that because, when it comes to choice, I always think about how many of the things or the decisions that we make in life, how often do we think, oh, I don't think I deserve that, or that sounds like too good to be truth, and I
right.
think the safest way to go is this way.
Yes.
As
Yes.
a Latina raised, Mexican raised, and in my culture and across the world, I've seen this, where especially women will go for the safer side of things.
hmm
I'm not judging it and whether right or wrong, but I'm just curious, like, what happens there? What's the pattern that you notice?
Yeah, like I think that's a really good question and good observation. Everybody's kind of like life trajectory is always different, but it always comes down to most often childhood experiences, things that have happened in our foundational these what do they call it? Like these formative years
Mm-hmm.
where you were supposed to learn all of these really great tools and coping skills, and I know I didn't learn until I was in like my 20s.
Sure.
But all of these foundational pieces, from right from wrong to being nice and kind to, as Latinas, learning how to cook and clean and being a caretaker and sírvele a tus hermanos,
Yes, of
like
course.
all of that kind of stuff, all of these messages, these are all things that we learn in childhood. And even the whole calladita te ves más bonita
Oh my
little,
God, yes. Such
right?
a very efficient way, I would say, that they found to really put a stop to everything you wanted to do.
Exactly, exactly. And so it's so interesting that like that message, I thought I was the only one. And now like that I'm able to talk about these things in like different formats and different spaces. I'm like, wow, that was like a universal message that we were all given. And that message has been living generation after generation. That is generational trauma with that message because my mom didn't get it or my parents didn't get it from nowhere. Her mother, my
Yeah.
grandparents didn't get it from nowhere. That has been years of oppression that we have been living through.
That is so true. And
Mhm.
that's definitely one of the most powerful detrimental messages that we've ever received across the decades.
Yes.
Calladita te ves más bonita. Just really
Yeah.
like how, and then add to that the lack of self-esteem that we somehow inherited and learned
Yes.
because the moment we desired something, the scarcity, the fear of scarcity, or other traumas embedded within every generation and family came up and rescued you from ever wanting you to reach your goals.
Right.
It's a say, and then of course, your environment, your parents trying to rescue you from, God forbid, getting out of the circle.
Or even just like them, I will say some compassion for parents that like them not knowing how. Like
Sure,
they probably thought,
true,
well, you're going to school. I don't
sure.
know anything about your schooling, but you're going. I'm
Hmm.
taking you. At least that was my experience. My mom would take me. I will give her that. Very grateful. She would take
True.
me to school every day. I used to have zero period. So she had to wake up at 6 in the morning. So like to take me to, or I had to be at school at 6 a.m. So like at 5, I remember I would wake her up at like 5:30. I would make her a coffee and I'd
Mm.
go wake her up so she can take me to school every morning. And so like she was taking me, I had a roof over my head. I mean, like I had a bed to sleep in, but I also shared my bed with like two of my siblings, and there was seven of us in a two-bedroom apartment,
Right?
like probably like 700 square feet or something like that, very small. And there was food. I mean, was it the most nutritious? No, I mean lots of rice and beans, but there was food. And
Yeah,
so it's one of those things where it's like I think like our parents were doing the best that they could with what they had, and now it's up
absolutely.
to us.
Absolutely.
It's up to us to be able to now really break cycles with this awareness.
Exactly. Exactly. There's no excuse to feel like it's your parents' fault and or anybody else's fault that you're not doing what you want to do in life. I been there, done that as a teenager. There was a point like almost every other teenager that blamed their parents for
Oh, for
whatever
sure.
happened. Who
100%.
doesn't do that, right? There's a point we're gonna hate our parents, and then we
Yeah.
learn to love them again. But
Mhm.
it's as we're growing, we're growing, and we're going through the process of growth.
Right.
And even then, Patricia, something that still, I don't know, I don't know how to even call it, but it's this, what I see, even as a grown up woman, I'm just a year apart from mid-century, 50 years old, which thank goodness. But
Mhm.
I still see this, regardless of the age, I see friends and acquaintances and people that I love and other women, including myself,
Mhm.
continuously making choices that are not exactly in alignment with who you are and what you want or
Yeah.
desire.
Yep.
Why? Why do we do that?
Yeah. Yeah. And well, this is why I stay busy.
Sure.
The why is so challenging, but it's oftentimes because, like I said, those messages, not knowing what will happen, fear often holds us back. It doesn't allow us to push forward. We don't have the confidence. We're not assertive. Um, if we are assertive, then we're seen as aggressive. And so if we want to stay in our feminine energy, we don't want to be aggressive. We can't speak up. There's like all of these, like as women in general, and it doesn't matter like your racial background. We already deal with a lot of difficult things, right? There's even in like political climate that the government wants to make decisions over our bodies. So that's already like one thing as women in general that we are dealing with. And then you layer it on that you're a Latina woman, just like you said earlier. That like that's just like an added layer because it comes with so many expectations. Oftentimes there's this message that as Latinas, we, especially as women Latinas versus Latinos in general, like men don't typically have this responsibility. It's really usually the Latina woman, or Latina identifying woman that is responsible for taking care of her parents. Her parents might move into her house when she gets older. She might become their caretaker when they're older. The Latina woman is usually the one that is taking care of everything in the home, and my hope is that through doing things differently, then those chores are divided a little bit differently, right? But generally, that's kind of like the stance, like, oh, you're like, of course you're gonna cook and clean. Like, why wouldn't you cook and clean? Like, and you probably work, like
Exactly.
they're all like these things that we have grown up with. Like we have to do it all. So
It's
as
true.
women, we have these things as a larger population, but as Latina women, we have that added layer of responsibility for everybody. And we always tend to come last. And so
Absolutely.
that really creates an impact in the way that we view ourselves.
Hmm.
This is where these conversations come from. When I'm having these conversations with clients, we're talking about like, well, what if you didn't do that? What if you didn't go to the family party? What's the worst thing that can happen?
Hmm.
Well, they're going to be mad at me. Okay. And then what? Well, like that's it. Well,
Hmm.
then how come you cannot have autonomy over your own decisions and over your own life?
Very
It's
true.
really letting go of those expectations of people
Hmm.
pleasing
Yes.
and leaning into your boundaries.
I love those two tips because those are the major reasons why we keep making a lot of same choices, pleasing people. Don't break the pattern. Why make it hard when it's so easy just to go for what's worked in the past? For your mother, perhaps, but not for you.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And then also just like these expectations of like believing that you need to be a certain way, that
Hmm.
you need to look a certain way even. Like I
True.
remember like my mom was really big on like you're not leaving the house in sweats, like you need to go get dressed. And like and then body image that also comes into
Yes.
play. Like
Yes.
I remember that like I think like naturally I've always sucked in my stomach, and that's not because I wanted to, it's because that's how I was conditioned from
Hmm.
a very young age, all of these expectations. And now
True.
as adults, we are now like trying to break through those expectations, and it comes with a lot of pain, and it comes with a lot of fear and also believing that you might be disowned or looked at differently, but
Hmm.
ultimately it's all in an effort to feel overall better about yourself.
Ah, you touch on a very important reason why so many of us would rather not make that choice. The fear of breaking the pattern alone, it's scary.
Rejection.
When
Yeah.
yeah, rejection, who wants to be rejected? Who wants to be looked down upon, right? And
Mhm.
actually just criticize, just plainly criticize for not fitting the mold. I
Mhm.
And my life has been a clear example of that. I decided to divorce, and not for the obvious reasons that a lot of people would go for. Oh, somebody wasn't faithful. Oh, he was hitting you bad, or domestic violence, or any other topics. It was a simple reason that I think this is the right thing to do, and that was unheard of. And so there was a lot of criticism over that.
Mhm.
Completely felt misunderstood, and just because of that and the reactions that were created around it, I almost didn't make the choice. And then I wonder, if I had listened to everybody else, what would my life be like if I hadn't listened to my heart?
Right.
Because it's not just about the person making the choice, but also everyone around that's going to be affected by the choice, which in my
Mhm.
case, and again, I'm not giving advice on how to divorce, don't take it like that. But what I'm saying is, definitely, I have to own my decision, knowing there were going to be repercussions, right? There was going to be a series of events. My children will get affected. There will be this and that and that. But it didn't doesn't matter the complexity of the choice you make. What To me, what matters is owning that choice
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
moving forward. But convinced and conviction, sometimes it's really hard to get to.
So challenging. It's definitely not something easy to work on or work through because there's so many things that are working against you,
Hmm.
especially when it comes to family expectations.
Absolutely.
Like that's really the
Yeah,
big one.
absolutely. Patricia, give us a few tips. How can we as Latino women start breaking the cycles? How
Mhm.
can we start healing from a lot of the trauma, a lot of those chains that are still holding us down and preventing us from making that decision
Mm-hmm.
and just going for the choice that our heart is really calling for.
Yeah. Well, the first thing is paying attention, noticing how you're actually feeling in situations. Oftentimes, we might tend to do this thing called dissociation, where we're here but not really here. Like
Mhm.
our body's here, but our brain is elsewhere. So pay attention to that. Pay attention to the stories that you tell yourself, the fantasies that you create in your head. Pay attention to the things that you would want to do, but that you don't do, or you stop yourself from doing. And maybe take inventory. It'd be maybe an option to do some journaling around that. I love journaling, and I'm not like a big, like, you have to journal every day. Journal when you feel called to do so.
Mhm.
I like to keep a journal like in various places in my house, and everybody knows you don't touch them.
Oops, out of it.
Yeah. But like I have one like by my nightstand. I also have another one like on my kitchen counter. And like they all serve different purposes. But it's the bigger piece is that it's a reminder that I have the space to do that, that I have the space to do some reflection. So
Mhm.
number one thing I always suggest is notice, pay attention to the fantasies that you tell, or the stories you tell yourself, the things that you're daydreaming about, how you're like, man, I wish I looked that way, or I wish I was doing that. Pay
Mhm.
attention to that.
True.
And then from there, decide what are the things you can control and what are the things you cannot control. Because inevitably, we cannot control everything, but we can control ourselves. And we can control the way that we do things. But think about, like, if I were to go to sleep a little earlier, would that make a big difference? Maybe not for others, but for me it will. Or a big one that I tell a lot of people and they are resistant. Go to sleep with dishes in the sink. Ooh, that gets people.
Oh, no.
Yeah, like go to sleep with the dishes in the sink. Is it going to make a big deal, or do you really have to stay up late by yourself cleaning that kitchen when everybody else is relaxing, asleep, or spending time with family?
Right.
Because oftentimes the woman is the one that is in the kitchen cleaning up. Leave the dishes in the sink. They'll be there tomorrow and it'll still be okay.
Right. You can still get your workout, hint, hint, even if you don't
Exactly.
do dishes right
Exactly.
after breakfast.
Yeah. So even like little things like that, thinking about like what are the things that you have to do that you can let go of, that you think you have to do. And like the cool part about being an adult is that you don't have to, you can have ice cream for breakfast if you want to.
Mhm.
Like you can do whatever you want, which is really cool. As kids, we
True.
couldn't do
True.
that, but as adults, we can.
We can make a lot of choices.
We can
And
make a lot of choices.
what happens when you lose confidence over the years because you feel you have a history of making repetitively wrong decisions. And so you feel like I'm not going to choose because I'm going to let somebody else decide for me. Because every time I do, especially when it comes to uh, love relationships, or friendships or big decisions like that, a lot of people can lose confidence over the years. What would you tell them to kind of regain that confidence and still try to really make a choice?
Well, the first thing that I always think about that I ask is how come it's a problem now?
Hmm.
Because before it helped. Maybe before it was like, you know what, I don't want to deal with this. I'm going to have somebody else deal with it. Fair. But then after a while, that started getting comfortable. And then after a while, it started getting uncomfortable. And so I would probably first want to know, this is my therapy hat. How come now? Why is it a problem now, but it wasn't a problem before? What's changed for you? What's different about you? And sometimes when I ask those kinds of questions, people will tell me, well, I was reading this thing, or I was watching this Instagram video, or I was on social media and like this popped up, or I was talking to a friend about it. So it's always like, like these outside sources and now give us this like insight, this realization of like, huh, people do things a different way than what I do. Why am I not doing that? So it's like we're like in this bubble, and then when we allow space to like hear other people's thought process, then we start reflecting on what we're living. And
Mm.
that's usually when things get uncomfortable, is because choices or change is happening.
Very true. Very true. You mentioned social media and the impact it's actually had on people across the globe. And when it comes to mental health, which is becoming a very um, common topic nowadays and more accepted, of course, especially among the younger generations. I'm curious. The the social media has this greatest, a really great it can be supportive, right, in many ways. I think it's just a great thing overall. But then,
Hmm.
of course, we know there's always the dark side of social media where people are relying more and more on social media to receive even emotional support, mental health support, and
Right.
which is kind of a good thing, but also a bad thing. So, can
Hmm.
you give us some tips on how to make sure that we're really relying on information that's reliable and truthful, that's not going
Hmm.
to harm us more than help us.
Hmm. Well, the first thing is to remember that Instagram and social media is not therapy. There are licensed professionals that are available. We've done a ton of training to be able to say that and to hold our licenses, because it's so important to get the right support from the right kind of person, the right kind of people. So the first thing is remembering that when we share things, because I share things on my social media as well, it's sharing things just as information. Is my hope always through my social media is to create awareness for you to say, huh, I never thought about that. Maybe I should look into that a little bit more. That's usually the message that I'm trying to portray. It's definitely not like a one, two, three step on how you can feel better.
Mm.
The other part also is remembering that we all kind of share the good stuff on social media. Like, who's out there really like being in a crisis and opening their phone and recording themselves? I mean, maybe some people do. I don't know.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
it's sometimes like staged, right? Like if you're in a crisis, are you really thinking about recording yourself and putting it on the internet?
Right.
Or are you like in a crisis?
It's true.
So, remember that people put things on the internet that are
Hmm.
all good things. They're all sunshine and flowers.
Yeah.
People are not probably putting on there like their insecurities with their body image or the big fight that they just had with their parents. They're not doing that kind of stuff. Maybe they'll
Right.
give you a recap after, but in
True.
the moment, that's not happening. Um, and then also, we also have to limit the time. What is this thing called? Doom strolling? Doom scrolling, where you're just like scrolling endlessly,
True.
trying to fulfill something in you is
That's
something to
true.
pay attention to. Give yourself some
Absolutely.
time. I'm like a big one on like, yeah, enjoy social media, but there's always limits to everything. Just like
Mhm.
there's a bedtime, there should also be like a time limit on social media so that you can still connect with people and you can still, of course, connect with yourself.
I totally agree. Couldn't have said it better. It's important to just stay on track with what's going on, in the world. And there's nothing wrong with social media, but
Right.
it is a problem when you really become dependent on social media for everything and you think that you're going to find the answers to everything there. Just
Hmm.
because we also get, let's face it, a little lazy and we're cheap. We either don't want to invest in it or we just don't want to look for the right answer. And there are so many professionals like Patricia out there that are willing and ready and properly trained to support us to
Hmm.
become really empowered and make the choices that are really going to improve our lives and really help us live better every day. And that is the whole purpose of the podcast for me. Bring awareness of the services, the resources, and different tips and ideas for people to really start working towards their lives to improve, whatever that is, by the way, because we're not setting a standard.
Hmm.
It's such a personal thing. As a health coach, I always tell my clients, health doesn't look one particular way.
Hmm.
It's your way, and how do you look and how beautiful you feel. It's on you. What
For
would you
sure.
say, right? What would you say, Patricia, is most important for women to start working on towards making better choices?
Mm. Oh, there's so many different things. But I would say maybe like a good starting point is being nice to yourself, being nice to you. That can allow you to start paying attention to all of the good and then the things that feel uncomfortable without judgment. Because it's always like, I need to lose weight, or I need to learn how to be a better cook. I'm not enough of a Latina because I'm not cooking enough, or instead of that being the narrative, why can't it be, I'm going to try a new recipe because I want to improve on this, versus I'm so bad at it.
Mhm.
Like it's changing the way that we talk to ourselves. That is a really great starting point, and oftentimes what people struggle to even do. Being nice to you shows compassion, and then it will also bring awareness on how you want to be different or better, so that you can feel confident in all the things that you decide to do.
Powerful words. So, friends, amigas, thank you so much for listening and staying with us. Patricia, it's been a pleasure
Thank
to
you.
have you in this episode of Better Every Day, or Cada Día Mejor. And we are looking forward to having you back at some point.
I love
Any
that.
last words of advice you want to give to our audience?
Just a reminder that it's never too late to change the way that you feel about yourself and the world. That the really cool part about choice is that we can do it at any time. There's no timelines. And if it's now, or if it's in a year, or in 3 years, or even longer, it still holds value. Um, and my hope is that you can spend some time thinking about the way that you are and what can be different, and be curious about the possibilities. Be curious about those daydreams and the hopes that you have for yourself, because it can really create an impact in the way that you feel about yourself overall.
Wonderful. Well, you couldn't have said that better. Thank you so much again for your time. And for those of you who might be interested in learning more about EMDR and what Patricia does, I'll post her link to her website so you can follow her and read a little more about her. A lot of good information is on her website. You're just going to love following up with her. Thank you again. And for everyone else, enjoy the rest of your day, week, or weekend. We'll talk next time. Maybe the next one will be in Spanish. I don't know. Ya veremos. It doesn't matter. Just bring your Spanglish and
There you
we'll
go.
get the conversation started.
Thank you for having
Hasta la
me.
próxima. Bye
Bye.
bye.